It's gonna be kind of hard to say this. Most people are probably not gonna believe me, but it is what it is. Bethesda is trash. Yeah, I know that's not actually hard to believe at all. Anything other than that would be hard to believe.
Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today. Hope you're all doing absolutely excellent. I'm here to talk again about Starfield. Last time we talked about Starfield, just a little bit over a week ago, we got a teensy tiny update on the game.
I think we have already surpassed 200. Everyone clap. Leave in the comments that you were here. You know, leave a good thing about Starfield because I'm pretty sure we have already surpassed officially 200. Yes, that's right. 100 Starfield bad videos. Again, clappers in the chat, boys. We did it. This is by far the most Starfield hate channel on YouTube, on any platform, honestly. Again, my detest for Starfield and Bethesda is unparalleled, is unmatched. They will write songs about me one day. This guy never said a good thing about Bethesda, and he was right. He was right to hate Bethesda. He was right to say that everything they touch turns to shit. And you know it. Deep down, you know it.
Game. And within that teensy tiny update, it spiderwebbed a bit thanks to some recent Xbox rumors. But now we have an update on this rumor, and we have a pretty good idea of what is going to be happening with Starfield, when the next expansion is coming, when the PS5 port is on the way. And as I always say, the reason we're tracking this is on top of being very interested in what Bethesda is actually doing here with this expansion, it's also about how it collides into Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout. But on top of that, the main reason I wanted to cover this is I made a lot of predictions in that last Starfield update, and I might be kind of right in some areas, but also kind of wrong. So I thought just updated thoughts on what's happening here, I kept getting tagged in this news, would be
my predictions about Starfield is still bad. Still very bad, in fact.
worth covering here today. So if you're new here and you're into what's going on with Bethesda Game Studios, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. So today's rumor, the source is MP First, who's kind of put themselves on the map as of late. However, a lot of their rumors have originally come from, hey, job listings. They kind of scrape through LinkedIn, they'd find a little something, they'd report it. They did this with Oblivion Remastered. They did this with Assassin's Creed Black Flag Remake. They did it with these types of games, and so it was legitimate, but it also wasn't inside sources or scoops of some kind. In this case, though, this is we heard from someone. So that is a bit of a twist on the usual sourcing from MP First, so we can move forward, grain of salt, but the report writes, Starfield PS5 release planned for 2026 alongside Expansion 2. So that already throws a monkey wrench into my Todd Howard interview. Todd, it's aging like milk. You got to come back on the channel, brother. Come on now. Okay, so he said annual expansions. That's clearly not happening here, but I think for good reason, as we'll read here.
For good reason, yeah, because Starfield has actually lost 99% of its player base. Usually I'm being hyperbolic when I say that, because losing 99% of players is pretty much never accurate, and that's more just like a fancy way of saying, well, a colorful way of saying that the game is dead. Starfield is dead, and it has lost 99% of its player base. There we go.
According to our sources, MP First was told that Starfield won't be released in 2025, partly due to the RPG's weak sales of the first expansion, Shattered Space. Instead, Microsoft is leaning toward releasing the Starfield PS5 version in spring 2026. For those not in the US, spring starts middle of March and runs until mid-June. From what we were told, Starfield's release on PS5 is planned to coincide with the game's second expansion and other quality of life.
No one on PS cares about Starfield. No one. Everyone's making fun of it. Even if you give it to every PS player, owner, I should say, it's still not going to get even 5 new players.
Updates. We are not expecting any announcement about the PS5 version of the game at this August Gamescom, so don't expect it to be shadow dropped like Bethesda's Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remaster release a few weeks ago, which is something we reported accurately on for anyone keeping score. Love the chest out energy, but to our topic today. Okay, staying in a little bit of speculation mode, but where I may be heading toward being right is that whenever we see Starfield on PS5, the support gets cut. And learning here that the sales for Shattered Space were bad, I'm not trying to like champion like, yeah,
I said it was bad. People said, "Oh no, it's not bad. 30 billion million quadrillion players." Yes, yes, players, not payers. So, hey, again, vindicated. God damn, this has literally been the vindication month. Pirate software collapses, Moonhard collapses. Vindicated on pretty much everything. Coddle jobs. I mean, every single thing. People did not believe me on that. People said you're crazy for saying this. Fucking vindicated, boys. Absolutely.
I want you to fail, but failure deserved. I hope they learned a very valuable lesson with that expansion. It's just unacceptable
They didn't learn anything. We all know this.
quality. So I'm glad that in all of this, it looks like they're buckling down, taking their time, and making something worthwhile.
By the way, notice how absolutely deceptive these sentences are from people like Mr. Matty, Luke Stephens, and whatnot. Because Shattered Space is just more Starfield. Shattered Space is exactly the same slop you were already given. It does nothing unique, it does nothing different, it's the same garbage you already played before. But somehow, when it comes to Shattered Space, you're saying it was bad, but when it came to Starfield, you're not saying that, even though Shattered Space is literally more of the same. Curious. Curious.
With that in mind, because they're taking a longer time, and now we're starting to hear rumors percolate that it is in response to those poor sales, and clearly they need to spend a little more time with this, I do think expectations should rise. This is something I talked about last video. I said, when Bethesda's silent, I've been guilty in the past of raising my expectations. Oh, they're cooking. Fallout 4 Next Gen update happens. I start to realize, oh, just sometimes it's a complete mess. This has also been the case for other bits of silence across Bethesda. In this case, however, they are breaking a promise that they made last year, instead spending more time and resources on getting this right. That's great, but now I'm just really hoping this is like a Phantom Liberty moment for the game. I'm not expecting that because there's no reason to expect it yet, but that is what it should be, especially if you're synchronizing it with the launch on PS5. Then that gets into the other thing I might be kind of right about, and then we'll talk about what I'm obviously wrong about, which is simply that I think this second expansion is it for Starfield. When you are trying to coincide that release of Starfield...
Well, it's not going to be the end of Starfield. Again, none of these games can truly die. Bethesda's too big of a name. They're going to keep that shell alive no matter what. But, you know, again, the same way that I say that Ubisoft and BioWare are, that they are. They are. In a financial sense, they're completely obliterated. But someone's gonna keep them alive because the name itself has value. They're gonna stop existing in its current state. Even though people are not gonna notice it because no one knows how they honestly operate. People are gonna get changed. Positions are gonna get reshuffled. And a lot of things are gonna happen. They're not gonna die, but their current iteration is gonna die. That is a true death of a AAA company nowadays because they don't just shut down. Someone's gonna buy their name because the name still holds value.
Starfield on PS5 with that second expansion so much that you're willing to delay it. I feel like moving it out of 2025 into 26, there has to be that conversation internally of like, is anyone going to care at that point? Starfield did great numbers in 2023. There was a lot of hype behind the game, a lot of curiosity behind the game, and a lot of people walked away soured from it. Word of mouth for this game, between its expansion and its post-launch support, has been terrible. It's not like the game has carried incredible sales or incredible player counts, unfortunately. So when you go to PS5, you need to make it count, which is why this needs to be a Phantom Liberty moment, but it also kind of needs to be the final version, the complete edition. I just don't see a world where Bethesda continues to commit resources to Starfield when Elder Scrolls 6 is on the horizon. We just heard Fallout 5 got greenlit. We don't know Bethesda's...
Elder Scrolls 6 is on the horizon, he said. Elder fucking... Bravo. It's dead.
Real involvement in that. They're getting pulled in a million directions. And when you have Microsoft owning you, we see how they care about making their money. You don't got time for Starfield and weak expansion sales.
Yeah, no shit. They spent $8 billion on Bethesda. And Bethesda's response, Bethesda's first thing under Microsoft was release Shattered Space. Not Shattered Space, but Starfield. Yeah, I would be also pretty pissed about spending my money on Bethesda after that.
Just finish the job here, put a complete edition out on.
Not to mention that Bethesda's reputation is in the garbage. You know how long it's been since any of my Starfield or Bethesda bad videos have received even a shred of pushback? It's been pretty long. Worst case scenario, 10% negative, thumbs downs on a video about Bethesda bad. Worst case, typically it doesn't even come close to that. Typically it's in your average 3 to 5% range, which is kind of normal. Yeah, there was a time when Starfield was first coming out. I saw the trailer and I was like, holy shit, this is so bad. Everything about this is bad. There's a reason they tried to show you 0.3 millisecond clips of combat. There wasn't it? I called it out. And, well, 50% of the viewers did not like that. There was pushback. Oh no, it's great. It's gonna be amazing. Just you wait. You're completely wrong. Starfield's the future. Bethesda's on top. And here we are. From 50% negative reviews to not even 5% any longer on average, because everyone knows, everyone sees Bethesda bad. It took a while, but time proves me right.
On PS5, spring 2026, and I'll be really interested to see what exactly that looks like, and I'll also be very interested to see what the sales are. But yeah, I don't think Starfield is going to go for many years like many of us thought it might, and that may ultimately be for the better. As I've talked about in the past, as much as I want Starfield to be great and for people to love it, the reality is that it does pull resources away from Bethesda to focus on the things that we fell in love with them for: Elder Scrolls, Fallout. Bethesda also happens to be one of the worst when it comes to waits between releases, and especially when Elder Scrolls and Fallout fans were kind of warring with each other. Just each side was waiting longer and longer, and now game development's taking longer. You throw Starfield in the mix, 76 in the mix. It's been a while since any fan of Elder Scrolls or Fallout got something like proper for them, barring the Oblivion remaster. So yeah, as much as I want Starfield to thrive, and maybe the second expansion is the turnaround, it turns the game into what it should have been, it really ignites people's love of it, or people start to go, okay, not bad, cool. Like, it can just maybe redeem itself a little bit even. I don't know if that changes anything.
By the way. Mr. Matty uses this scene a lot, and this is probably one of the most fakest shit I have seen in my life. This is supposed to be the pirate faction, aka called, as you can see, the Crimson Raiders. They're a bunch of pirates. And there's so much of them, by the way, that they are literally another force in the galaxy, which does not make sense on a very, very, very basic basis. Because if you have so much power that you are literally considered one of the, I don't know, 3 big forces in the universe, in the known universe, you stop being pirates, because that's fucking stupid and inefficient. You just become another state, another sovereign, another monolith of power. You can't have something that rivals all existing empires and is as strong as them, and you're still a bunch of fucking outlaws. If that happens, you kill yourself from the inside. But Bethesda wouldn't think that far ahead, or even think at all. This is the obvious outcome. Because there have been tons of empires that have started as just lowly barbarians that have accumulated power. Genghis Khan, the easiest example of this shit. Genghis Khan. Rome, how do you think Rome started? All of these things when they become big enough, they're not just a random group of mercenaries, they become a state themselves. And that's not even the worst part of the Crimson Raiders. That's just personally something that ticks me off a lot. It's the fact that the Crimson Raiders, as you can see here, it's like, oh, he stole from me, and then he tries to kill him. This one doesn't obviously care. By the way, that's probably a woman that looks like a man, but who cares about that part, right? It's the fact. It is the stupid, autistic fact that when you do the quest line for the Crimson Raiders, there's one guy who's like, oh, let's take out the big cheese of the Crimson Raiders and be the leaders now. And you can tell him no. When you tell him no, nothing happens. When you tell him no, you can't tell the big cheese, hey, this dude that's trying to currently join us with me, yeah, he wants you dead. How about that, huh? Can you believe that, Mr. Pirate? And you can't do that. You can't. There's no option for that. You know what happens instead? You need to progress a stupid fucking retarded quest chain. And then he asks you again, hey, did you rethink that? Did you rethink that? So how about now? How about now? Let's betray him. And then you tell him, no. And he's pretty pissed. He's like, why? And then you're like, then you go to the main guy and you're like, hey, oh, you don't have an option to tell him that he's still trying to betray you. Okay. Okay, time passes, you continue doing the stupid, boring, stupid quest line, and guess what? Can you guess what? Yeah, that's right. The dude, again, comes to you and says, hey, how about we betray him now? How about that? Ooh, scary, I know, scary. And you're like, no. And then he says, you're gonna regret this. And nothing happens. And at the end, the guy doesn't get accepted as part of the Crimson Raiders, and he's like, I'm pissed at you, and I'm gonna kill you. Even though you get accepted, by the way. The main guy is there. Everyone is around. You're now a part of the Crimson Retards, and he's not. Which means that their code, or whatever autism they live by, doesn't even apply to him, right? And he literally, right there in front of everyone, threatens you because you did not choose to betray the big boss. The big boss that's, by the way, literally like right here, right next to you. You can put your hand around the asshole. And he's like, oh, because of that, I'm gonna now kill you. Just you wait, you better watch your back. And nothing happens. No one gives a shit. But if you try to shoot him, everyone in the Crimson Raiders is like, oh, you can't do that. Better kill you. That's just how bad Starfield is. And that is just one example of how bad the game is.
A little bit even. I don't know if that changes anything. I think because we're full steam ahead on Elder Scrolls 6, this has to be the cutoff line, especially if Shattered Space sales were really weak. And I mean, again, for the price tag and the quality, just compared to the competition, Phantom Liberty was the same price as Shattered Space. And remember, a lot of the changes with Phantom Liberty were added to the game for free. So think about that for a little bit.
Now, I do want to give you all something to chew on a little bit here beyond the delay rumors, and it's this recent finding by the Starfield Reddit of some sort of interplanetary travel. You'll see here within some of the code for Starfield, as analyzed by XTC Refugee, is mentions of an on-ship cruise arrival and departure. And so it's anybody's guess what this can be, but it looks like in some
No one cares what that is.
sort of future update, Bethesda is targeting some sort of space travel update. What that ends up being, if it's
Yeah, probably they want to make it. The average person who does not try to min-max their loading screens needs roughly 5 to 7 loading screens to get from a planet to another planet. Not kidding, by the way. If you're a professional competitive Starfield player, you only need 3. Yeah, and 2 unskippable cutscenes. Fun!
up to our wildest dreams or not is totally up in the air. There is a mod that a lot of this Reddit thread was pointing out called Astrogate, which does address a lot of the problems Starfield has. So a lot of people look at that mod and go, okay, there's a way for us to travel around space without all the loading screens and keeping it seamless. So maybe Bethesda, as they've done before, has seen a fan mod and have leaned into it with their own technology, and they'll give us the official version of it. We'll see. They're targeting it. Ultimately, we shall see. But
This game is not in a great spot, and I hope they can turn it around.
Really?
But it seems like in what I was incorrect about is what is written here, is that Starfield's PS5 release is not expected to be shown at August Gamescom. This is a bit
Why would anyone waste time showing Starfield at Gamescom?
of a surprise to me. I thought for sure with what we talked about involving the game business and how on that episode with Christopher Dring and Matt Piscatella, there is a write-up that says Xbox is expected to announce more game ports to other platforms, including Nintendo Switch 2 and PS5 in the coming weeks. It felt so obvious Starfield would be one of those. Todd promised annual expansions. We're getting close to the end of the year. We're getting close to Starfield's 2.
Well, Todd has promised a lot of things, and I'm not sure if Todd's name is actually Todd. No one knows. Legends has it that Todd was born in a lie.
Year anniversary. This is a great time to show the game, what updates have been packed into the game, what the second expansion is, when it's coming to PS5. You also have that moment on Gamescom Opening Night Live 2024 where Jeff Keighley announced the release window of Indiana Jones on PS5. So,
by the way, the fact that they're literally showing Indiana Jones off instead of Starfield, and Indiana Jones was it was a disaster. It wasn't even Vogue. It wasn't even, well, it was like Dishonored without abilities and way worse. So, a 3 out of 10 game, but, for an Indiana experience, for an indie experience, it was pretty good. It's actually pretty decent. But the game, had what, 4K? 10K? Maximum players on Steam? It was a disaster. No one wanted it. I mean, we literally had a guy with 15 rainbow pins attached to himself who was fat and don't even get me started. Who said it's made for modern audiences. I and literally every single other person who was even remotely interested in the Great Diarrhea completely checked out at that point.
there's all the history there. There's all the reason to believe this would be a good spot for it to be announced. The timing was just right. When Starfield didn't show up at Xbox's Summer Showcase, again, it was like, okay, kick it down the road a little bit. They're taking as much time as they can. They're not ready to show much. But now we're getting to the point where if we're looking at spring 2026 and they show nothing at Gamescom, I don't know when a good time to show it would be. I think it'll just randomly be shown on Bethesda's channels whenever they're ready. And that'll be interesting to see how that's handled, how that's received. But this means that whatever happens next for Starfield, by the time we do get it, Shattered Space came out September 30th of last year. So if we're coming out in spring of 2026, over a year has been spent on making Starfield's next DLC and its updates. I think there's reason again to believe that this should be somewhat substantial. We'll see just how substantial, but it should be a big swing at the least. And that's what I was really hoping for. And I'm glad they're taking the time. If it ends up being disappointing, it'll sting. But the silver lining is that they're going to move on to things like Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5, things that I think they're much better at making and things that I care a lot more about, if I'm really honest about it.
Bro, the only thing Bethesda added to Oblivion Remaster was Gender A and Gender B, and everyone hated that. So, no, Bethesda is not capable of making any game.
They also wrote here, similar to any release and marketing plan, there are numerous moving parts and things are constantly changing. However, based on the information we currently have, we do not expect Starfield to be released this year. So yeah, no Starfield this year, no expansion this year. As for predictions of
actually bad though, I could milk that hard.
This might happen. Your guess is sincerely as good as mine. Starfield's in a weakened position. I don't see it showing up at like the Game Awards at the end of this year. It just doesn't feel like a spot where Starfield's big enough to be there. I feel like one of Xbox's own platforms would be a good spot. I felt like that's where August and Opening Night Live was a great fit with Gamescom because usually that showcase is updates on things we already know about and very little brand new announcements.
You know what's unironically my favorite part about Starfield? Black Scientist Lady. You know.
So again, it just all added up for Starfield to be here. So I do think it's just going to happen on Xbox and Bethesda's own channels because we've seen what's happened when you get the announcement of a big Xbox game going over to PlayStation, right? Like Gears of War Reloaded. I mean, Gears, like a core Xbox franchise, going over to PlayStation. That's a big announcement. It was done through a tweet on
Gears of War is dead.
PlayStation's channels. And if you're
It was
Microsoft and you care about
ruined.
making money, it's not always about like where Xbox is going to be, but sometimes letting PlayStation make that move alongside Bethesda. PlayStation making the first move does create the most noise. It does create the most attention grabbing because it's like, whoa, Starfield in PlayStation, which we've expected for a while. We've known has been in the works for a while. But keep in mind the other aspect, which is the rumor Tom Warren shared, which was that the PS5 port was apparently done last year. It was supposed to launch alongside Shattered Space, but Bethesda held on to it. So again, that's reason to believe, if we're going to lean into some rumors out there, that Starfield's port is done. So a lot of this work has been spent on just
That's a midget pirate. What the fuck is going on? Are we Borderlands now?
the expansion and the updates. So
Oh man, I should talk about Borderlands. I still want to make the video where I roast all the stupid Borderlands comments, but man, people were not commenting as much. I probably still can find a good decent amount of them, but I'm kind of bored. But there's other things happening. So the Borderlands roast is happening, boys. Don't worry about it. But you know,
what exactly it's going to
probably not soon at this rate.
target, what exactly it's going to be, how successful it is, we'll just wait and see. Because I'm certainly not creating wild expectations like they've solved all of the loading screen issues in the game. If they did that, that'd be fantastic. Or, oh my god, there's
That would not matter in the slightest. The game would still be garbage. It doesn't matter what kind of cope anyone does. Starfield is never gonna be good. Anyway, that was Mr. Matty Plays 10 out of 10. Bye!